Hey everybody, welcome back to the Boston-Raleigh channel. Last Tuesday, instead of Monday, because it was such a long thing, I didn't have time to get it out in time. We got the Epic History American Revolution episode 1. We're still on episode 1. We're 10 minutes. We are 10 minutes runtime. Almost 11 minutes into the first video that's like 27 minutes. Oh, I could talk forever. 45 minutes of episode is too much, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I just go on forever and ever and ever. It's a big deal. I love America. I'll try to be a little more succinct. But I mean, I hope everyone enjoys it. We're doing American Revolution. We just picked up from, like, really we just got context. We only got context. We got context for Europe. We got context for the French and Indian War. We got context for America. Context for slavery. Context for the demographic change. Context for the fact that Britain kind of barely wanted to control the American colonies because we didn't give them all their money. The Caribbean was where they got a lot of their, like, big mega bucks, gold crops from. And American colony, we cost a lot in the French and Indian War. England had a debt. They wanted to levy some taxes. They weren't very big taxes. They would be a mere pittance compared to the taxes of today's American population. But they were taxes, and they weren't very consensual about it. Americans didn't have representation. Very few people voted, but the Americans themselves, none of us got to control at all what Parliament did in Britain. So we'll get into that here.
But there are bitter divisions within the Virginia Assembly. Some members believe Patrick Henry goes too far. Loyalty to Britain and the British Crown is deep-rooted.
I mean, this is also, I did say that the underrated aspect is that England didn't really want to, the people of England weren't that interested in holding America that hard to fight a war over it. Many Americans were not that interested in separating from Britain. The separatist movement here was not overwhelmingly backed by literally everyone. So there's a lot of loyalists, the Tories, the people who would rather just stay with Mother England and not separate or do anything like that.
Conservative members succeed in removing his most radical resolution, that only Virginia's assembly has the authority to raise taxes in the colony.
Right.
Among the regular observers at these debates, a brilliant 22-year-old law clerk named Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah! Yeah, baby! Woo! That's what we're waiting for. So I'm like, woo! Okay. I like Thomas Jefferson. Patrick Henry was the radical. He was like the guy who kicked all of the hornets' nests, kind of. And Thomas Jefferson was also, by Britain's definition, a radical like, these people. None of these people were, quote unquote, very pro England or conservative in that regard, and they wanted to make a change, but it was all for the better. And Thomas Jefferson, he's like one of the best. He's very smart. You had people like Patrick Henry, braggadocio, boisterous. Thomas Jefferson, very smart man, very tactical, very mild mannered and wise, and also a little bit strange.
The divisions in Virginia are mirrored across the colonies as debate grows more heated and protests turn violent. Tax collectors are beaten up by mobs, driven out of town, or forced to resign. Tax documents are destroyed. Effigies of royal governors are burned or hanged from liberty trees.
Liberty trees. Oh. I mean, it's not pleasant. Something had to be done, Something had to be done. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. I think this only works because Britain was Britain and America is America. If this happens within the country, we're kind of screwed. Although I do feel... How did everyone enjoy tax day last week? You like paying your taxes? I don't. That's why I run up my expense sheet so high. That's why I just budget myself so I don't even need to make money, because I'll just grow my business without doing that. But anyway, taxes, not bueno. Very no bueno. We don't like taxes here. We don't like these non-consensual taxes too. Again, not very big taxes. I'm sure many of you watching today paid like 30-40% of your income in taxes to the various different forms of government you pay taxes to. But yeah, they weren't happy about the taxes. You know, it just wasn't. It wasn't the kind of thing that Americans don't like human to human subjugation very much. A lot of us love to follow God, but we are not so reasonable as to let people tell us what to do very much. It's kind of the American way.
Meanwhile, delegates from 9 of the 13 colonies meet in New York.
Yeah.
Where they draft a petition to the British King.
Mainly Maryland, Delaware, South Carolina, and then the North.
George III and Parliament.
Hold on.
To the British King, George III and Parliament.
George III, big king, not very good at being a king, but, you know, he's not the smartest. He's not the most wise king in the land. They kind of bungled this whole thing, but King George III, big deal. He is one of the most infamous kings in British history simply because of this revolution.
While assuring Crown and Parliament of their unwavering loyalty, the delegates declare that it is their right, as Englishmen, to have no taxes imposed upon them without their consent.
Yes.
Colonial merchants begin to organize a boycott of British goods. The uproar, the possible damage to trade, plus the fact the taxes are clearly unenforceable, finally forces the British government to back down.
Yeah.
The following year, 1766, the Sugar Act and Stamp Act are scrapped by a new British Prime Minister, Lord Rockingham.
The Marquess of Rockingham.
The colonies have won a major victory. But the British Parliament does not back down over its right to raise taxes in America.
You thought you got the best of us with us getting rid of our garbage taxes? We'll make new ones. We'll always make new ones, cause we're the government. We rule over you. We're your suzerain. We're your benefactor. We'll take whatever we want from you.
The same day it repeals the taxes, it declares,
Parliament assembled, heard, hath, and of right ought to have, full power and authority to make laws and statutes of sufficient force and validity to bind the colonies and people of America, in all cases whatsoever.
Well, that's not completely tone deaf at all.
The words seem calculated to outrage America's colonial assemblies, and convince many that though this storm has passed, another will surely follow.
It's like they were asking for it, you know? Suppose a military force is sent to America. They will not find a rebellion. They may indeed make one. Benjamin Franklin to Parliament, 13th of February, 1766.
1767. 1 year on, Parliament passes a new series of measures to raise revenue from the colonies and demonstrate its authority over them. They are named after the Chancellor of the Exchequer. The
Townsend Acts, tax on glass, lead, paint, paper, and tea, intended to pay colonial officials wages to ensure loyalty to the crown. The tea tax was not a good one. Customs Board established to enforce shipping regulations. Reduce taxes on British East India Company tea. So it's funny because it's like, we're going to reduce the taxes on the British East India Company. The mega chongus that goes and gets stuff from the East Indies and stuff like that. Global trade type crap. We're gonna reduce taxes on them by raising the taxes on America. So it was like, we see you don't like taxes. Let's give you some more taxes. They've decided to start it. No offense. I think if Britain hadn't done this, I could characterize this so much different. but they just knew they were pissed. They were not happy about what happened. They were a little upset about it. They didn't like the fact that they were forced to remove the taxes. We're gonna make it miserable for you, is what they said in return.
Townsend Acts.
Yucky.
In the 13 colonies, they are met with howls of protest. Royal administrators are chased out of towns.
Yup.
Some
Oh man, the poor people they sent to enforce this too. It's not like they have an option. They get sent to do their job, and it's like they had to deal with the Bostonian ire from like you sent them to go and pick a fight, not on their own behalf, on behalf of Parliament. Most British citizens didn't really want this that bad. They weren't happy that we were making them look bad, but they didn't really want to have to go through all this trouble. But they were forced to ask for trouble, and this is why I don't like monarchies. Your sworn loyalty forces you to do things against your own behalf, and I don't like that about monarchies. This is what I don't like about Britain. They decided, we're going to make these fuckers, these poor people, go and do this to Boston, go and do this to the vast majority of the colonies. We're going to go and ruin everyone's lives by sending them into the meat grinder that is New England at the time.
tax officials are tarred and feathered. A brutal punishment where the victim is paraded through the streets covered in scalding tar.
Yikes. Yikes.
A new term emerges for these rabble-rousers. Patriots.
That I won't refute it. It's wild to hear that. I know Epic History, the guy who does this has a British accent. Maybe he's from Britain. Good lord. I mean, it's just, again, it's like look at what these people are doing. They're not taking kindly. They're not taking kindly to this false authority, as they would claim it. Obviously, the victors always right. The good guys always win. The victors write history. The good guys always win. I think it's funny because I didn't expect them to say patriots. That is true. However, patriotism is a concept applied to all nations. Whether or not you are patriotic towards your country is not the Boston Patriots, aka eventually the New England Patriots, right? They got named after this. They kick everyone to pieces. That's what they do. It's what they do in football. It's what they did in the Revolutionary War. They were nasty. The Brits were nasty to us, so we got very nasty in return.
Colonists who seek to avoid confrontation with Parliament become known as loyalists.
Right. Patriotism for America versus loyalism to Britain. It is very funny how the tables turn so quickly, where you're called a loyalist or a patriot now instead of just being a British subject. Because effectively, the way that Britain saw Americans was as British subjects, and that really wasn't shared. You know, you had all the misfits thrown on the land of misfit Britons, and they didn't quite like Britain very much in what they were doing. So I mean, you know, it's funny to me. It's always been funny how many loyalists they were. It was a hard life. Colonial America was hard. It was difficult. We don't have it so hard, but geez, like it just there's so much tension, and I think there were a lot of people who just didn't really want things to explode, and that's why you had loyalists.
Many communities and even families will soon be divided between these two camps.
Right.
Though for now, most are somewhere in the middle. Among the patriots in New England are a group calling themselves the Sons of Liberty.
Yo, what a based name.
Led by Samuel Adams, they include merchant and smuggler John Hancock, physician Joseph Warren, and silversmith Paul Revere.
Now, understand, Samuel Adams is the brother of who eventually became the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. second president of the United States, John Adams. But you had a lot of big deals here. You had John Hancock. He wasn't a big deal because he signed his name. I mean, it was a big it was a big deal that he did sign his name because he was a big merchant. He was a big smuggler, all that kind of stuff. He was a big businessman. And you have things like that. You have these characters. John Hancock is probably characteristically seen as like a big businessman tycoon dude from the time. Big deal. Very big deal. He threw his weight around really well. Throws his big dick around everywhere because he's the big businessman with the big signature. You have Joseph Warren, who I barely remember. You have Paul Revere, who I think is... Silversmith is interesting. He's known for something else. And then, of course, Samuel Adams, known for very great Boston Lager and also just being the founder of the Sons of Liberty. You had so many of these things. So much of our culture is based on these people. And then there's Joseph Warren. I wonder, part of me has to wonder if there's any relation, any family tie between Joseph Warren and the third place from Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. I gotta believe there could be a tie, maybe. I don't know.
The crisis comes to a head in Massachusetts. Boston has been a hotbed of patriot activity since the Stamp Act.
Yeah, it has.
And tension rises when British soldiers are quartered here in 1768.
You know, the Third Amendment is something that's a little underrated in American society because when the British government forced you to house soldiers, not of your own accord and without any sort of compensation, kind of fucked up. And so, you know, the Third Amendment is something that is almost never talked about, but amendment against quartering soldiers is a big deal. It was a very fresh wound back then, at the very least.
On the 5th of March, 1770, an altercation between soldiers and locals turns into a tense standoff. Taunted by an angry crowd, hundreds strong, pelted with snowballs and rocks, the small British detachment loses its nerve and opens fire. Five local men are killed.
Yup.
The Boston Massacre, as it becomes known, is powerful propaganda for the patriot cause.
Propaganda that just happened. I mean, I understand definitionally speaking, it is propaganda in the sense that it is a narrative to push forward a narrative that does things for someone that they want to have happen, right? It is propaganda inherently, but definitionally propaganda. It literally just it's not false propaganda. It definitely happened. It's a big deal, and it's not undersold. I think that the idea of something like that happening is the kind of thing that gets people real riled up.
The news carried in pamphlets and prints, the most famous created by Paul Revere. Blood has been spilt. Emotions are running high.
Let the 5th of March never be forgot.
Right.
Sorry guys, we forgot the 5th of March.
It's Bostonian Samuel Savage in his diary.
I mean, it's funny though because the 5th of March is not it's the Boston Massacre, right? I didn't actually technically I saw like there was a historical post where I saw the Boston Massacre. I was like, oh yeah, that happened this day back in 1770. What was it? 1771. I don't know. I mean, I remember it in a sense. I feel like we should remember it more. No, everyone says remember the Alamo. Who says remember the Boston Massacre? We need to bring that back.
Many anticipate a downward spiral into violence and disorder.
The inhabitants are greatly enraged and not without reason. Diary of John Roe, Boston Merchant, 5th of March, 1770. I mean, yeah, it was 1770. I was right. I was right the first time. Greatly enraged. And not without reason. Definitely not without reason. That's true.
Despite the bloodshed in Boston, there are many on both sides who seek to de-escalate the crisis between British, Loyalists and Patriots. The British governor of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, withdraws the troops from Boston and has those involved in the shooting put on trial.
See, it's funny because he is the British governor from Massachusetts. However, right, he's a governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He is actually supposed to be representative of Massachusetts at this time. He was kind of installed, but sort of not really. You know, it's sort of like he is the governor who communicates with Britain on behalf of the Bostonians or the Massachusettsans. No one really says Massachusettsan as a demonym, but I think we've mistaken masshole to mean literally just anyone from Massachusetts, I think. And so you have New Englander, you have Bostonian, and you have masshole. No one says Massachusettsan, but he was the governor of the Massachusettsans. And yeah, no one is going to not feel a little sympathy towards the Bostonians at that point in time.
They are acquitted of murder thanks to the efforts of their skilled lawyer, a noted patriot, John Adams.
Yeah, so this is something a lot of people will be upset about. I'm sure some of you are like, betrayal. No, I think that the thing that must be understood is that John Adams is maybe one of the most principled individuals who has ever been in American politics. And he says things that kind of break the bounds of wisdom. He's a limit buster in that regard. George Washington was potentially the best president we've ever had. John Adams is very underrated. He defended the people because he was hired to do so. That you don't like it about lawyers, but they do a good job sometimes. And acquitting these people of murder is not popular. Put that mildly. It's not very popular. But you understand, I can forgive him for this. I can believe it.
In Britain, there is a new Prime Minister, Lord North, a close friend of the King and staunch advocate of parliamentary authority.
And a complete freaking penis head. What is that face? What is that face shape? I mean, it's not penis, but good God, it looks stupid.
He will serve in the role for...
I mean, to be fair, this is an artistic rendering. Maybe he was actually that ugly. Maybe he wasn't as ugly as they make him look. I think this is supposed to be flattering for him, so he's actually ugly. Never mind. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. This guy's gross.
The next 12 years.
I don't know.
Will
Hold on.
serve in the role for the next 12 years.
Okay, so he is the prime minister until the 1780s. So through the entirety of the Revolution and the Revolutionary War and all that stuff, the fallout. This is the guy. This is their guy who has to deal with it all. He gets bought into this by the king because the king still has some considerable authority in Britain at this period in time, which they absolutely do not really following this. This is maybe one of the more detrimental things that have ever happened to Britain.
The economic damage of colonial boycotts persuades him to repeal Townshend's new taxes.
Yep.
All but one, on tea.
Right. They can't take it all because they can't actually afford to do it. And I feel a little bad for this guy because he was bought the ticket to ride this ride, in a sense. But I don't feel that bad for him because he still represents the people who did all this. And I think that it's reasonable to say, like, you have to understand that you can't just stop. Parliament probably would have thrown the man out if he had repealed all taxes. So you had to say at least, well, all right, we're going to do one thing. We're just tax tea. That's it. They'll take it, hopefully, and just leave us alone and just keep going on. They need to just keep calm and carry on paying their tax on tea and it'll all be good, right? No.
Relative calm returns to the colonies. The boycott is lifted.
For like a year.
Second crisis has been weathered. But in New England, hostility towards the British government lingers.
Funny, actually, it's like the map they have. You have Hartford and New Haven, which are good cities to put in Connecticut. Providence, obviously, for Rhode Island. Boston. Portland, Maine was always the biggest Maine city. Portsmouth, New Hampshire. That must have been much more relevant back then. Portsmouth, New Hampshire is not a very big, like, it is a complete forgotten city at this point relative to New England.
Here, local merchants rely on ships and trade, and have long resented British imperial rules, which restrict their commerce with other nations. Many patriots, like John Hancock, make extra money by smuggling goods into the colonies, bypassing British import duties.
Yeah, we don't... John Hancock did not want to pay Britain's tariffs.
British efforts to clamp down on smuggling do not make them any more popular. Royal Navy warships are used to inspect and seize vessels belonging to prominent local figures, like John Hancock. To the outrage of New England merchants, the British also begin trying suspected smugglers in special Vice Admiralty courts, rather than the more sympathetic local courts. In 1772, the Sons of Liberty hit back, boarding the Royal Navy schooner HMS Gaspé and setting it ablaze.
See, it's funny to me because attacking prominent people, powerful people in another country, if they're not hated by the people around them. John Hancock was not a hated individual. He may have been wealthy, but you know, back then America wasn't full of little bitches who don't like wealthy people. sorry to be mean, but if people generate good lifestyles for the people around them, why do we hate them? I don't understand, because being a detriment to the upper class in New England was enough for New England to say we're done. And it's funny when you look at that in comparison to today, where big deals within a small area, they're not usually... people like Mr. Beast, but people don't like, their local, big, like, medium-sized business people. People who do good things for other people, not assholes. Not saying that you should just like businessmen because they do business, but people who actually make things and, like, propel the economy forward. Why don't we venerate those people anymore? I don't understand.
Meanwhile, in Britain, the empire's largest corporation is on the verge of bankruptcy. The East India Company has a monopoly on British trade with India, China, and the East Indies.
Yeah, they were the largest corporation in the world, the British East India Company. They don't look so big anymore relative to today if you were to plonk that here now, because a trade company that just traded with them, that's not anything compared to something like a Google or who, like, Alphabet owning all the different things that they own, the different ginormous mega companies now. But the British East India Company was a big deal, and they had a lot of things. And the British East India Company, they weren't paying their taxes because Britain cut their taxes to put taxes on the Americans. So there's your, like, slightly populist sentiment today.
But a credit crisis now threatens its survival.
Oof.
In 1773, to help keep the company afloat, Parliament grants it the right to sell tea directly to the American colonies.
Wow.
The company also receives tariff exemptions that will make its tea cheaper than that of the local smugglers.
See, it's funny because in all of this, they were like, hey, our really big company, the pride and joy here, they're starting to lose some revenue here. They're having a tough time out doing their shipping out there. Why don't we just like, exempt them from taxes, so that way they can compete with the smugglers, the New England smugglers who make all this money doing their business. Why don't we just have the British East India Company come in and take all of their business? Why don't we just put our thumb on the scale for the biggest company to ever exist in the world up to that point in time? You know, it does seem a little ridiculous, but you gotta understand things were a little ridiculous back then. That's why we love liberty so much.
But a small tax of 3 pence per pound of tea remains in place.
Right.
The new Tea Act thus threatens the profits of local smugglers and provokes patriots on the principle of taxation without representation. As 7 company ships cross the Atlantic, packed with 250 tons of tea, the Sons of Liberty and others pressure tea dealers to reject the shipments. When one ship arrives in Philadelphia, thousands of locals threaten anyone who helps to unload its cargo.
Yeah, I mean, this was, in my opinion, this was properly the point in time where you can say, effectively speaking, that this war began. Was when we're like, all right, you know what? F you. We're not going to help you. You're ruining our economy. You're ruining for the big people who make all the jobs and everything. All of our big boys. We're very proud of them. You're screwing them all over by putting the British East India Company's needs above everyone here. We're not going to help you. We're going to make it actively very painful for you to try to do anything. And that's my absolute favorite form of economic impact is always holdout economics. Boycotts are underrated. Making people's lives miserable when they make yours a little bit less than ideal from a position of power. That is always my favorite response. It will always and forever be, because it's so grating to the people doing the awful shit when you hold out. You prevent them from doing their shit, and that's so much better than just being like, terroristy. Terrorism is no bueno. Holdout economics is my favorite form of exacting a little bit of justice. That's what I'll say.
Most of the ships are forced to turn back. In Boston, however, Governor Thomas Hutchinson has had enough of boycotts. He ensures that 3 company ships enter the harbor.
Uh-oh.
On a December evening in 1773, members of the Sons of Liberty board the ships, disguised as Native Americans.
See, there's a difference between terrorism, where you murder people to make people do things out of fear politically, and outright rebellion, which this is such a gentlemanly conflict and affair. Think about all the stuff that didn't happen. I mean, watching through the rest of this, not a lot of casualties in the entirety of the American Revolutionary War. I think it was something in the order of 30,000 total between all the war fighting and all the different stuff. Not a very big event in terms of death and destruction. A very, very monumental event in terms of the right to self-determination. This was the biggest. This is the biggest ever. And they hardly killed anybody.
They've chosen these costumes as a symbol of their new American identity.
Yeah. The Mohawk
They break
Indians.
open 340 chests of tea and dump the contents into the harbor.
You didn't want the boycott? You're getting the boycott.
92,000 pounds of tea in all, with a value today of nearly $2 million. Patriots celebrate the Boston Tea Party as a bold act of defiance.
This is so beautiful. So good. I'm thoroughly enjoying this so much. I'm very happy we get to watch these. This is my favorite. This is actually probably when New England was its most relevant, unfortunately. But at least it's not like Philadelphia. Philadelphia only had relevance from like, I mean, it's always Philly's always been relevant. I love Philly. I don't want to live in Philly because it's terrible, but Philadelphia is pretty big deal overall. Its most relevant was during the pre-Constitution era, before Washington D.C. became the hub. New England largely showed a lot of its bravado in this war, compared to other events in American history. It's very nice.
And it is just the most famous of several such acts in numerous ports and towns.
Oh yeah, because we had several, right? Because we have the Greenwich Tea Party. I can't remember where that is. Was that in England? I don't know. Wherever Greenwich, Greenwich was, I'm not sure. That's the one that I'm kind of covering part of. The Charleston Tea Party, obviously, I believe that's South Carolina, New York, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A lot of tea partying. Boston's was the Boston's was the best. Theirs was the best. The biggest, some might say, the most important.
According to Patriot lawyer John Adams,
this is the most magnificent movement of all. There is a dignity, a majesty, a sublimity in this last effort of the Patriots that I greatly admire.
That is a good quote, but the voice kind of sucks for that. No offense, I love John Adams.
The people should never rise without doing something to be remembered.
Indeed.
Something notable and striking.
Very, very indeed. Very, very big same.
The reaction in London is rather different. The British government sees only lawlessness, mob rule, and an outrageous attack on private property. Enough is enough. If the government does not act firmly now, its authority in North America will lie in tatters. The time for restraint is over. The gloves are coming off.
Wild. Alright, so that was that episode. Actually, let's go back. Yeah. We'll end on that image. This has been a great episode. Last week was really long. This week is kind of long still. I don't know. I take a lot of time watching these and going and talking about them and over explaining everything before it happens. I've done that a little bit less today. I didn't literally just pre-summarize everything that the video did. This has been an excellent time. I do love American history. It is one of the great pleasures in my life to reminisce, banter, talk shit, all of the above, in regards to the country that I call home. But definitely be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Tell me what you want to see other than epic history in the future. Let me know if you want to hear me ramble about more shit, because I have a lot of crap to say in regards to historical precedent, the American Revolutionary War, and others. Have yourselves a rest of a great day. Bye bye.